Total capital importation into the country more than doubles in 2017 by 138.7% to $12 billion. Towards savings on food imports, federal government sets aside about 50 billion naira for genuine food processing companies in the country. Nigerians warned to avoid trading in bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, saying that there is 100% risk involved. Electricity distribution companies discuss to stop further arbitrary billing and illegal disconnection of electricity consumers. This is your business magazine program, Business Express, and I am Muplang Dakok. Total capital importation into the country, comprising both foreign direct investments, FDI, and foreign portfolio investments, FPI, more than doubled in 2017, surging by 138.7% year-on-year to $12.2 billion from $5.1 billion recorded in 2016. The National Bureau of Statistics said this is a pointer to the soaring confidence of foreign investors in the Nigerian economy. In its capital importation report for fourth quarter of 2017 and full year of 2017, the report added that as at the end of 2017, total capital imported into Nigeria was $12.2 billion, an increase of $7.1 billion or 138.7% from the figure recorded previously. It noted that the increase was driven by increased portfolio investment, which went up by $5.5 billion from the previous year to reach $7.3 billion in 2017, accounting for 60% of capital imported. The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, has again warned Nigerians to avoid trading in bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, saying that there is 100% risk involved, as they are neither insured by the Central Bank of Nigeria or insured by the NDIC. The corporation says this is because transactions in digital currencies or Ponzi schemes put people at risk which cannot be investigated. Unlike other currencies issued by the CBN, the NDIC says there's no digital currency guaranteed by the Apex Bank, since it is not legal tender, as there are over 1,000 types of bitcoins globally. The Bank of Industry, BOI, says it has set aside about 50 billion naira for genuine food processing companies in the country to save the huge foreign exchange being spent yearly on food imports. The managing director of BOI, Olukayode Pitan, stated this when he received the House Committee on Commerce, Industry, Trade, Investment in Lagos during their oversight function. He said the support of the federal government in the bank was to be able to guarantee a line credit of worth over $500 million from the Africa Development Bank that required a sovereign guarantee. More than 96% of the bank's risk assets were performing, maintaining that the bank closed the financial year of 2016 with a non-performing loan of 3.7%. The chairman of the committee, Abubakar Moriki, stated that the BOI had a crucial role to play in revamping the companies hit by lack of finance. The National Petroleum Corporation Group Managing Director, Mekanti Baru, said 3 remaining aspects of the petroleum industry bill will be passed before the end of June this year. This was based on the assurance it had received from the National Assembly that the remaining parts of the Omnibus PIB, which was split into 4 different aspects, would be passed before the end of the second quarter. Of the 4 parts of the bill, only the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill has been passed by the National Assembly and is awaiting the assent of the President. The Petroleum Fiscal Bill, the Petroleum Administration Bill, and the Petroleum Host Community Bill are awaiting legislative deliberation and consideration. This is coming as the corporation stated that oil companies operating in Nigeria were flaring 700 million standard cubic feet of gas daily, capable of generating an equivalent of 5,000 megawatts of electricity. The Consumer Protection Council, CPC, has warned the nation's electricity distribution companies, DISCOs, to stop further arbitrary billing and illegal disconnection of electricity consumers. It stated that such arbitrary billing and group disconnection of electricity consumers without consideration for those paying their bills constitutes a gross abuse of consumers' rights. The Director General of the Council, Babatunde Irukera, who gave the warning in Abuja at a meeting, expressed understanding of challenges in the industry, pointing out that there is no excuse for how consumers are treated. The Council further disclosed that consumers' complaints have not been primarily about supply, but about billing for non-existent supply, stressing that as a matter of fact, vast majority of supply complaints are attributed to the demand to pay for something that has not been supplied, and that of arbitrary disconnection. To shed more light on the mandate of the Consumer Protection Council, CPC, and what it is doing to protect the rights of consumers is the Director General of the Council, Babatunde Irukera. You are welcome to Business Express.
Thank you.
The problem of billing of electricity has been of concern to many Nigerians, if not most Nigerians. And your council has warned DISCOs to stop this arbitrary billing and even illegal disconnection of electricity. How effective would you say is this warning?
Well, I would say that we just had the conversation a couple of days ago, I received the senior management of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. And one of the reasons why I was receiving them was that there is incessant complaints about electricity services. And consumers obviously rightfully or understandably aggravated, and electricity constitutes the main complaints that we receive. And so we're going through what the issues were and trying to figure out the best way to respond to them. And in identifying what the issues were, I was letting them know that the vast majority of the complaints we receive is not primarily that there is insufficient supply of electricity. Of course, that's a complaint,
Yes.
but that's something that people have lived with for a long time. They're tired of it, but that's not the most important thing. The two complaints that I see repeatedly is that people are in the estimated billing, and it just seems arbitrary, and that's why it's now been renowned crazy bills, and really it's become institutionalized, called crazy bills. And the reason is because people think that there's absolutely no fundamentals that support that billing. And the other challenge that people are experiencing is group disconnections. So you have one responsible person, a few other people who haven't paid their bills, and even that one responsible person or that one person who's paid his bills will be disconnected because they're disconnecting a whole group or a whole community. And so I was saying to them that while understanding the infrastructure challenges, and it's very important that at least they must be more responsive. They must address these two issues. Their estimated billing must now truly be reasonable, and there must be a linear connection between the bill and really what has been consumed, and certainly the group disconnections should stop.
Okay. One of your key mandates, or the mandate of the council, is to provide speedy redress to consumers' complaints.
Correct.
Okay, so how far so far?
How far so far? Interesting.
Yes.
Well, we do that. We do as much of that as we can. And but the one thing I'd say to you is that if I receive any complaints about the Consumer Protection Council itself, it's really about how quickly things are resolving. And what we're really actually a catalyst for resolving disputes, because there's a commercial contract between a consumer and a service provider or a goods producer, and a social contract, if you will. And so what we're trying to do, or what we do, is to ensure that we hold the contracting parties accountable to themselves and their obligations. And so when we receive a complaint, we don't just go and whack a company off their backs. We have to go through a process of trying to ensure that these companies do what they're supposed to do. And sometimes we have to involve third parties, especially other regulators. In electricity, for instance, the electricity regulator, in telecommunications, and telecoms regulator, in banking, the central bank. And it's a complex process, and it takes time. In some sense, we're adjudicating, which is like being a judge. And we have a role, we have a responsibility to provide fair hearing and allow everybody to express themselves before coming to us. So that takes time sometimes.
All right. Findings have revealed that not so many consumers know about their rights. Okay, so what is being done to raise this awareness?
And one of the most important functions of a consumer regulator is to educate people about their rights.
Okay.
And when I started work there, my conclusion was that people in Nigeria do not sufficiently know their rights, to the point that we've become somewhat complacent about them.
Yes.
Currently, on a national campaign with the United Nations Industrial Development about quality. It's a quality campaign, but a key component of that campaign from the consumer protection standpoint is the hashtag demand and insist, meaning that we want people to understand that the goods and service providers actually owe them an obligation, and that is to demand, they must demand those rights and insist on compliance with those rights. The other thing that we've come up with and we're working through is completely re-strategizing our consumer education mechanism. And prior to when I got there, they would do flyers, periodic events, and television, jamborees, and all kinds of. I don't think that that's effective. I don't say it's not. There's some mileage, but it's not so effective. Okay. And so what we're doing now is redeveloping the messaging in such a way that we're holding service providers and manufacturers accountable to actually take some of those messages to their customers, because they've mastered how to message, they've mastered it in their advertisement, they know exactly how to communicate with their customers, and they've developed the channels also. So we're going to leverage on that to also advise people about their rights.
Okay, so are there any challenges your council is facing in the pursuit of its mandate?
Are you kidding me? Of course, of course.
Okay, so
first, the entire council is 266 employees. We've got 8 offices across the country. So very vast country, 36 states, 774 local government areas, and about 200 million people. So there is a huge capacity deficit in that regard. And then, of course, there's the other resource deficits also, and then even the judicial process. And so there are a myriad of challenges. But we're taking it one day at a time, and I believe that we've embraced the responsibility. We're better than where we started, and there's still quite some road to go, but I'm confident that we'll get there.
all right. Your board has just been inaugurated. So do you think that this will assist your council to achieve its mandate?
You know, that's a very interesting question, but very important one. And my answer to that is yes.
Okay.
I understand how boards operate. I mean, being a lawyer, I know what the role of a board is, to provide guidance to the company.
Yeah.
And in the case of an institution like this, the law defines what the board should be, but doesn't really identify the functions of the board. But you can, yeah, I mean, the default function of the board would be to guide the operations of an entity. And as I met with the members of the board yesterday, what we did was to tell them about the council, tell them about the mandate, and then try to enlist their support and partnership in the states where they are in assisting with those key functions, which is consumer education and harvesting complaints and putting as much information out there. So I think that all things considered, there's a potential. There's an opportunity for us to expand our leverage in using the members of the governing board and them supporting the council to accomplish its objectives better.
All right. Are there any penalties for companies or agencies or even individuals who flaunt the law?
The simple answer to that is yes, but the complex answer to that is it's complex. Okay. And the simple answer meaning that the law clearly states that the council has a responsibility to provide redress. Okay. And redress mechanisms are, I mean, and the type of remedies under a redress mechanism are significant. And one of the ways of redress is, apart from compensation, is to prevent. And we're supposed to prevent unscrupulous practices and then exploitation. And penalties have always been known as a deterrent. And so based on that, yes, we do penalize companies.
Okay. Do you think the CPC is living up to its billing as an agency that protects consumers' rights?
Do I think the CPC is doing the best it can?
Yes.
I think in the circumstances we find ourselves, the CPC is doing extremely well. Okay. Do I think the CPC can do more? The answer to that is absolutely, I think the CPC can do more. Okay. Do I think that if the scorecard is about how well Nigerians are treated as consumers, what do I think about that scorecard? I think it's a failing grade. And it's not entirely about the CPC failing, it's also about companies that provide services or goods just not doing as well as they should. And I think when consumers are not fairly treated, the first person to be graded is not the consumer protection agency, it's actually whoever is responsible for providing that service. And that's what we do in the CPC, trying to make them do what they should do. So all said, I think that there's a whole lot more that we need to do to make sure that we have a robust consumer protection, or at least Nigerian customers are better, feel better and more satisfied with what they purchase or consume.
All right. But on a final note, any cheering news for Nigerian consumers, especially electricity consumers?
Well, I think for one thing, I think supply has increased. Okay. I think the government has done quite some work in that space. I think there's a lot more aggressive metering going on. So I think this whole question of estimated billing is progressively going to reduce. But from the consumer protection side, we're coming up with a few initiatives that would certainly make the whole framework more robust and people feel better.
Okay. Thank you very much, Babatunde Irukera, the DG of the CPC, for joining us on Business Express.
Thank you very much.
All right. Profit taken by investors on the Nigerian Stock Exchange dragged market capitalization down by 174 billion naira as major highly capitalized stocks depreciated at the end of Thursday's transactions. Details of this with Musa Abubakar.
The Nigerian Stock Exchange declined 1.12% to close 42,843.38 basis points. A sum of 371 million shares worth 4.8 billion naira were traded in 4,570 deals. Seplat, Interbrew-led gainers table, NB, Dangote Cement and WAPCO topped the losers chart. Transcorp, Zenith Bank and Guarantee had the most shares traded.
And now for a look at prices in the commodity market. And what are the current exchange rates of major world currencies? And this is where we draw the curtain on this edition of the program. See you again next week, Monday. I am Moplang Dakok. Bye for now.